Today, I will speak to you on the topic, the power of hope. Can any of you recall being in a hopeless situation? I want you to think about it, and I want you to think about how hopelessness made you feel. Hopelessness occurs when we find ourselves in a situation where we have concluded that there is no basis for us to have confidence of expectation, a confident expectation of a positive outcome. Metaphorically, it is being at the end of your rope. It is being stuck in a quandary as you feel powerless in your special set of circumstances to extricate yourself from your situation. Lots of things can bring us to the point of hopelessness in our lives. Hopefulness is a powerful emotion that it is often described, or it can be described perhaps as being the lowest point in our lives. And people who experience hopelessness may feel that their situation will never ever get better. They may feel that there is indeed no future for them. They may feel that no one is willing to help them. They may feel like actually just giving up. They may even conclude that nothing never ever goes right in their lives. And sometimes they may feel that in this life, happiness is not for them. And when this happens, it no doubt breaks their spirit. It crushes them. In this life, we will experience difficulties. In this life, we will experience challenges. In this life, we will experience things that will push us into the realm of hopelessness. But church, I want us to understand that God has called us to be a people of hope. And it is important that we understand that hope is not something that you have. Hope is something that you do. Hope is a decision. It is a choice that we make about where we will place our minds and how we will respond in any given situation. Hope is a decision to act as if change is indeed possible even in the face of uncertainty, even when we feel broken, unworthy, discouraged, or even hopeless. Paul tells us in Romans chapter 8 and verse number 24, he says, "For in this hope we are saved. But hope that is seen is not hope at all. Who hopes for what he already has? But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait patiently for it." Cultivating hope often requires us to develop patience. Hope is the desire for something that is all usually combined with our anticipation of it taking place. When we lack hope, our spirits are often downcast. When we lack hope, we are often disturbed. And David tells us in Psalms 43, and verse number 5 rather. And David asks a question in this psalm, and he says, "Why, my soul, are you downcast? Why are you disturbed within me?" And then he came to himself and he recognized, and he says, "My brother, take yourself together." He says, "Put your hope in God." He says, "Put your hope in God." And so no doubt there was an occasion when David found himself downcast. He found himself to be disturbed. He was not at peace. There was no joy in his life. And he concluded that for him to have this joy and this peace, that he must put his hope in his God. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness that may surround us. I want you to understand that. I want you to come to appreciate that hope is the ability to see that there is indeed light despite all of the darkness that we may find ourselves in. Hope is the ability to acknowledge that every day may not be a good day, but there is indeed something good in every day. There is power in hope. You know, a number of years ago, researchers performed an experiment to see the effects of hope on individuals who undergo adversity. And they sought to do it using some test subjects in a lab. And in this laboratory, they took two groups of rats, and they placed them in two separate tubs of water. And the researchers took the first set of rats and they put them in the water and they left them there unassisted. And the research, if you read the research, it tells you that in about an hour, all of the rats in this first set of tests were drowned, or they were dead. The second set of rats were placed in the same amount of water and under the same conditions as the first. The only difference is that periodically they came and they lifted them out of the water, and immediately they placed them back in the water. And they did this, and they found that for over 24 hours, this second set of rats, they continued to swim. And so the question is, why did the second set of rats survive for over 24 hours and the first group of rats only survived for about an hour? And the researchers, they concluded that it was not because they periodically lift the rats out of the water and that they perhaps may revive themselves. No, it was not the reason why they survived. They concluded that the rats survived because when they were raised out of the water, they suddenly had hope. They had hope that someone would lift them out. And they continued to swim because they believed that if they continued to struggle, that someone would reach down and lift them out of this tub of water. And so they continued on, and they went on beyond the ordinary ability of a rat to survive. If hope holds such power for rats, how much greater should its effect be on us higher beings? The first set of rats had no hope, and they drowned quickly. I want to suggest to you that if we have no hope, we will also drown as they did. Being in a state of hopelessness can strip us of our energy. It can zap us of our motivation. It could cause us not to want to continue to drive and to fight in this life. Possessing hope can provide us with the strength and the drive and the motivation to endure perhaps even the most severe of circumstances and severe of situation. Church, I want you to understand that God is watching over each and every one of us in this experiment we call life. God is in the laboratory, and He is prepared to lift each and every one of us periodically out of the water, out of the waters of challenges. He's prepared to lift us out of the water of adversity and difficulty and hardship and unfulfilled dreams. And He is doing it for us today through His Word, through which we will have hope. It's the Psalm of David that tells us in Psalms 34, verses number 15 through 19. He tells us that God lifts us up, man. He says that the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and His ears are attentive to their cry. He says, but the face of the Lord is against those who do evil, and He blot their names from the earth. He's saying not only is the Lord's eyes and ears attentive for the righteous, but those who live contrary to the will of God, God is going to deal with those individuals also. And in verse number 17, he says, the righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. Not only does he heal, he says he delivers them from all of their troubles. And that is a powerful verse. He says, the righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. Not only does he hear, he delivers them from all of their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and save those who have a crushed spirit. The righteous may have many troubles, and sometimes we do. But he says, but the Lord delivers them from them all. There's hope in this text. Martin Luther King once said that only in the darkness can you see the stars. And I reflected upon that to see what the deeper meaning of those words meant. And so the question I had was, what happened to the stars in the day? Where did the stars go? Are the stars present in the skies in the day? And I've concluded that they are. I assure you that the stars do not move out of the skies. But it is only when it is dark that we see the stars. And similarly, often we do not truly appreciate the good times unless we experience the darkness of adversity in our lives. God is still on the throne. Although we may be in the darkness of adversity, God is on the throne. His helping hand is there for us. Church, when we walk with hope in our hearts, I assure you that we will never, ever walk alone. Difficult times, by definition, is difficult. If we are in difficult times, they will indeed be difficult. But even in difficult times, God is still God. His might and his power does not diminish because we face adversity and challenges and difficulties in this life. When you are feeling hopeless, reflect upon the words of the Hebrew writer in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 2 and 3. He says, fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of the faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. Christ was willing to endure adversity for us. He endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. And verse number 3 says, for consider him who endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you do not grow weary and lose heart. God does not want us to grow weary, nor does he want us to lose heart. God is a God of hope. There is always hope because there will always be God. God is always around. In Romans chapter 15 and verse number 13, he says, I want you to know that God is the God of hope. And Paul tells us, it says, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him. You see, God is not going to fill us with joy and peace if we do not trust in him. He says, may the God of joy and, may the God, let me slow down. Hick or no hick, I slowing down. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope. He says God's desire is to fill us up with hope, to the point where we are overflowing with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Remember this as I conclude. The shortest distance between the challenges that we face in this life and the solutions that we seek for the challenges is the distance between our knees and the floor. If you have some challenges, take it to the Lord. Kneel to him in prayer. God is indeed a God of hope. Trust in God. And let us, as the people of God, never, never, ever lose hope in our God, because God is indeed the God of hope. If you are encouraged by these words, if you need prayers, if you need hope, be willing to pray that God will strengthen you and help you to be able to stand through the adversity and the difficulties and the challenges that you face.